Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Javad Hami and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has told India to stop violating human rights in occupied Kashmir. At a press conference, he said New Delhi has to reinstate occupied Kashmir's autonomous status that was revoked in August 2019. Qureshi added that the BJP government's Hindutva ideology has destroyed India's so-called secular image. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's party candidate Abdul Qayyum Niazi has taken oath as the 13th Prime Minister of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. He received 33 votes in the newly formed Legislative Assembly, whereas joint opposition's candidate Chaudhry Lateef Akbar bagged 15 votes. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have announced to launch a retaliatory offensive against key officials and leaders of the Kabul government. In a statement, the Taliban have also claimed responsibility for the last night's attack on the Afghan defense minister's residence in Kabul. At least 8 civilians were killed and 20 wounded in the attack. At least 17 people have died after lightning struck a wedding party on a boat in northwestern Bangladesh. Officials said more than a dozen were injured. The WHO has called for a halt to booster doses of coronavirus vaccines until at least September to address vaccine distribution and inequity. It said the move would help achieve the goal of vaccinating at least 10% of the population of every country. The pandemic has so far claimed more than 4.2 million lives worldwide as the caseload approaches 200 million. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has told India to stop violating human rights in occupied Kashmir. At a press conference, he said New Delhi has to reinstate occupied Kashmir's autonomous status, which was revoked in August 2019. He said Kashmiris have been languishing in the world's largest concentration camp for the past 2 years. Qureshi also called on the international community to help stop Indian atrocities in Kashmir. The foreign minister also added that the BJP government's Hindutva ideology has destroyed India's so-called secular image. Kashmiris all over the world will observe Black Day tomorrow on the second anniversary of India's illegal revocation of the valley's special status. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has called for solidarity among Muslim states to support the Palestinian and Kashmir issues. In a meeting with the Arab Parliament's delegation, Khan stressed the importance of resolving these long-standing disputes. The Prime Minister said the Palestine and Kashmir issues are two of the root causes of disaffection in the Muslim world. He said these issues must be resolved as per the UN Security Council and Organization of Islamic Cooperation's resolutions. He added that Muslim countries need to act collectively to counter growing Islamophobia across the world. Pakistan's Minister for Information and Broadcasting Fawad Chaudhry said Islamabad wants good relations with India. He was speaking at Indus News Special transmission on Kashmir, which will be aired tonight at 10 p.m. Chaudhry said if Pakistan and India resolve the Kashmir dispute, it will benefit the regional economy. He said the people of India must force their leadership to shun its extremist Hindutva ideology. Meanwhile, in a series of tweets, he condemned India's refusal to allow 5 India-based foreign journalists to visit Pakistan. He said the move reflects space for free speech and independent journalism in shrinking in India. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan's party candidate Abdul Qayyum Niazi has taken oath as the 13th Prime Minister of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. He received 33 votes in the newly formed Legislative Assembly, whereas joint opposition's candidate Chaudhry Lateef Akbar bagged 15 votes. Niazi succeeds Farooq Haider, whose tenure as the Prime Minister ended on 30th of July. Earlier in the day, Information Minister Fawad Chaudhry said Niazi is a dynamic political activist and his heart beats for the people. Pakistan says the US might lose Islamabad as a key ally if Washington does not warm up to its leadership. In an interview, National Security Advisor Mueed Yusuf said if America sees a security relationship as a concession, Pakistan has options. Yusuf disapproved Washington's mixed and confusing signaling at a time when it acknowledges Pakistan's make or break role in the Afghan peace process. Answering a question, Yusuf dispelled the notion of a civil-military disconnect in Pakistan. The National Security Advisor termed his recent meeting with his American counterpart, Jake Sullivan, constructive. And for more on this, we are joined by Ali Sarwar Naqvi, former ambassador to the US. Mr. Naqvi, thank you for your time at Indus News. National Security Advisor Mueed Yusuf has said that Pakistan has other options if the US President Joe Biden continues to ignore the country's leadership. What options do you think those are?
You see, that is a manner of speaking. The options are already there, which we are exercising, which means that we have the support of the regional countries. Both the major powers of this region are Russia and China. With each of them, we have very good relations. And then we have friendship with bilateral relationship with Turkey and with Malaysia and various other countries in the Middle East and beyond. So there are options that Pakistan has, which it is exercising. But at the same time, Pakistan would like to remain engaged with the United States, which is a global power and with which Pakistan has had a very long and fruitful relationship.
So, Mr. Naqvi, do you believe Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan's flat-out refusal to be the part of any military operations in Afghanistan has upset Washington?
Yeah, well, actually, you see, these things are not done in this manner. There are media declarations and announcements, but there can't be any precondition to a meaningful bilateral relationship. And what Prime Minister Imran Khan has said is in the context of Pakistan's national interest is quite right. However, Pakistan will look for a relationship with the United States to remain engaged and to work on regional issues, bilateral issues with the United States.
Mr. Naqvi, the US has shifted its strategy and policy objectives multiple times in Afghanistan. How much of the current mess in Afghanistan is Washington's own responsibility?
A lot. I think a lot of it is the responsibility of the United States, because the United States waged a long war in Afghanistan along with a whole set of allies and friends from where it obtained troops, like NATO countries and elsewhere. And it did not achieve the objectives that it had laid out. To fight the Taliban and to prevent them from coming to power. B, to fight Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And C, help Afghan society emerge in its own right as a well-developed and functional society. So all these objectives were not achieved, and therefore the responsibility of the United States is for failure on all these counts.
Mr. Ali Sabar Naqvi, thank you very much for talking to Indus News. We really appreciate that. Now moving on, in Afghanistan, the Taliban have announced to launch a retaliatory offensive against key officials and leaders of the Kabul government. In a statement, the Taliban have also claimed the responsibility for the last night's attack on the Afghan defense minister's residence in Kabul. At least 8 civilians were killed and 20 wounded in the attack. They said the Special Suicide Squad carried out the operation, which inflicted heavy casualties. Earlier, U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said the Taliban are demanding the lion's share of power in any new government. In an interview, he said that a political agreement is the only way to solve the war and end violence in the country. India has announced it will be sending a naval task force to the South China Sea this month. The Navy said 4 ships, including a guided missile destroyer and a missile frigate, will stay in the region for 2 months. In a statement, it said the move seeks to underscore the operational reach and solidarity with friendly countries. It said the Indian ships will take part in annual joint war drills involving the US, Japan, and Australia off the coast of Guam. Earlier, Berlin and Beijing engaged in a spat after Germany sent warships to the South China Sea. The UK says boarders have left a tanker that they had apparently hijacked off the coast of the UAE. Earlier, Britain's maritime agency reported a potential hijack of a ship in the Gulf of Oman. In a statement, UK Maritime Trade Operations said the vessel is safe and the incident is over, giving no further details. The tanker's seizure was blamed on Iran, but it denied reports of any involvement. A spokesperson for Iran's armed forces said these events are psychological warfare to set the stage for new bouts of adventurism. Tensions escalated in the narrow shipping lanes of the Persian Gulf since Thursday's drone attack on an Israeli-managed tanker. Britain, Romania, and Liberia sent a letter to the UN Security Council saying it was highly likely that Iran used drones to attack the tanker. Moving on, Saudi Arabia says it will support a US-Iran deal if it ensures Tehran will never gain access to nuclear weapons technology. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud made these remarks to a US think tank in a webinar. Prince Faisal said Iran must give up its nuclear program, which can be used to develop nukes. The Saudi Foreign Minister also welcomed the US's intentions of reaching a deal with Iran. He said the potential pact will address Iran's ballistic missile program and its alleged support for militias. Prince Faisal said Tehran needs to stop supporting militias in order to play a positive role in the region and for its economy. He said Riyadh will very much welcome Iran as a productive part of the Middle East. The Israeli military says it fired artillery shells into Lebanon in response to a rocket attack on Israel. It said 3 rockets were launched from Lebanon, with one falling short of the Israeli border and the others striking inside Israel. It added there were no casualties on the Israeli side. Israeli defense officials speculate that Hezbollah was not behind the attack. Rather, Palestinian factions may have been responsible. In Belarus, the trial of 2 leading opposition figures has begun behind closed doors at a court in Minsk. Protest organizer Maria Kolesnikova and opposition lawyer Maxim Zinak were charged last September for incitement to undermine national security. If found guilty, they could each face up to a 12-year prison. Last year, the activists led mass protests triggered by an allegedly rigged election. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The World Health Organization has called for a halt to booster doses of coronavirus vaccines until at least September to address vaccine distribution and inequity. It said the move would help achieve the goal of vaccinating at least 10% of the population of every country. The pandemic has so far claimed more than 4.2 million lives worldwide as the caseload approaches 200 million. More in this report.
As millions of people have been fully vaccinated in Chile, the real-world data on the effectiveness on a number of vaccines has started pouring in. China's Sinovac has turned out to be 58.5% effective, while Pfizer is 87.7% and AstraZeneca 68.7%. In the United States, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued a new moratorium on evictions that would last until the 3rd of October. COVID-19 hospitalizations are also surging across the country, and medics are warning that overwhelming majority of patients are unvaccinated. New York City has become the first major U.S. city to require proof of COVID-19 vaccination at restaurants, gyms, and other businesses. Meanwhile, health authorities in northern Mexico have vaccinated hundreds of migrants living in makeshift tents.
I got the vaccine to avoid taking risks because there are no sanitary conditions here or anything. That is why I got the jab to avoid being exposed to illnesses. There are no sanitary conditions at all. One here is desperate because you never know when you will be able to cross. At least with this jab, I am slightly calmer.
A new study has found that fully vaccinated people have an around 50 to 60% reduced risk of infection from the Delta variant. In France, health officials activated an emergency plan or Corsica Island as the fourth wave of COVID-19 spreads across the country. Over in Australia, Queensland State has warned that lockdown in Brisbane might be extended if people flout the restrictions. Australia also recorded its youngest death from the virus as a man in his 20s died in Sydney.
And thirdly, very sadly, a male in his 20s passed away at home with COVID from southwestern Sydney overnight. Obviously, our deepest condolences to his family and loved ones, but it demonstrates again how this disease is lethal, how it affects people of all ages. Unfortunately, the gentleman wasn't vaccinated, hadn't had any dose of the vaccine.
Many places in China have ramped up epidemic control to curb the spread of the recent resurgence of COVID-19. In India, health officials say the second wave of COVID-19 is still not over in the country. Meanwhile, Thailand has reported its record daily deaths and cases since the pandemic began.
In Pakistan, COVID-19 has claimed 46 more lives in the last 24 hours, pushing the toll over 23,500. The health ministry said over 4,700 people tested positive overnight as the tally exceeds 1,047,000. It said more than 945,000 people have recovered so far. However, more than 3,800 are in critical condition. Meanwhile, more than 33 million vaccine doses have been administered across the country, and 6.9 million have been fully vaccinated. Pakistan's Army Chief General Javed Bajwa has visited BALOCH Regimental Center in Abbottabad. According to military's media wing, he visited the center on the occasion of the annual Commanding Officers Conference. Addressing the officers, General Bajwa lauded the regiment for displaying highest standards in all professional pursuits. The Army Chief emphasized that commanders at all levels should stay focused on achieving professional excellence. He added that the armed forces must keep up with the latest developments to overcome emerging challenges. Today, Pakistan is marking the National Police Martyrs Day to pay tribute to the hundreds of policemen who laid their lives in the line of duty. In his message on the day, President Dr. Arif Alvi said the brave sons of nation built impregnable defenses. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi honored the martyrs who sacrificed lives to eradicate terrorism from Pakistan. He said the whole nation is proud of the police martyrs' sacrifices that brought peace and stability in Pakistan. He pledged that the nation will not let these sacrifices go in vain. Anger is mounting in parts of India against the rape and murder of a 9-year-old Dalit girl in New Delhi last week. This is the latest case of sexual violence against the marginalized community. The girl's family has alleged that a Hindu priest and his associates raped her and then cremated her body without their approval on Sunday. Police said they have arrested 4 accused and launched an investigation into the incident. India is considered one of the most dangerous places in the world to be a woman. Home Ministry data from last year says a woman is raped every 15 minutes in the country. At least 17 people have died after lightning struck a wedding party on a boat in northwestern Bangladesh. Officials said more than a dozen were injured. Fierce monsoon storms have battered Bangladesh this year. A week of torrential rains in the southeastern district of Cox's Bazar left some 20 people dead, including 6 Rohingya refugees. Lightning kills hundreds of people in the South Asian nation each year. In Czech Republic, at least 3 people have been killed and over 40 others injured when a train traveling from Munich to Prague collided with another train. 8 critically injured passengers were taken to hospital by a helicopter. The Czech transport minister said human error likely caused the crash. He said the driver went through the red signal and collided with a local commuter service. Turkey says it has contained 152 out of 163 wildfires erupted in 38 provinces. At least 8 people have been killed in the blaze, while hundreds of thousands of locals and tourists have been forced to evacuate. 5 fighting planes from Spain and Croatia have joined the battle to extinguish the wildfires raging near southern resorts for the 7th day. Officials said the fires raged because of high temperatures, strong winds and low humidity. Meanwhile, in Greece, a blaze sent a huge cloud of smoke over Athens and prompted multiple evacuations near Tatoi. The blaze damaged electricity pylons, straining an electricity network already under pressure. In Lebanon, musicians from various genres came together to pay tribute to Beirut blast victims ahead of its first anniversary. More in this report.
Dozens gathered in Beirut for a musical tribute to the victims of the city's port explosion. The blast had killed over 200 people, injured thousands, and destroyed large swaths of the city. Attendees listened to a meditation-like poem recital and live performed music as they held candles.
We are gathering here tonight as a tribute to the victims who died in the explosion. We wanted to be gathered all together as a community in songs, in meditation, with the families of the victims and Beirut community, to all remember and never forget to remain one soul and demand justice.
One of the biggest non-nuclear explosions ever was caused by a massive quantity of ammonium nitrate left at the port since 2013. Even a year later after the blast, no senior official has been brought to account, angering many Lebanese.
Beirut has been suffering for the past year, with no joy nor hope. Togetherly, Beirut came up with this initiative and concert to remember those who passed away and bring a little life to the city. This tears has always been a comfort zone for the city. We surely want to come and be present to prove we are here.
A local investigation is stalling as requests by the lead judge to lift immunity and question top officials are hampered. The catastrophic incident occurred when Lebanon was already suffering a deep economic crisis that has worsened in the last year.
The Hong Kong team behind celebrity humanoid robot Sophia is launching a new prototype, Grace. It is designed to interact with the elderly and those isolated by the COVID-19 pandemic. More in this report.
Hi, Grace. Thank you, Sophia.
Dressed in a blue nurse's uniform, Grace has Asian features, collar-length brown hair, and a thermal camera to take your temperature and measure your responsiveness. She uses artificial intelligence to diagnose a patient and can speak English, Mandarin, and Cantonese.
Let's see what your smile looks like. Okay, yeah. Look, or sad. Oh, yes.
I can do all kinds of things for elderly people. I can visit with people and brighten their day with social stimulation, entertain and help guide exercise, but also can do talk therapy, take bio readings and help healthcare providers assess their health and deliver treatments.
Grace's resemblance to a healthcare professional and capacity for social interaction is aimed at relieving the burden of frontline hospital staff overwhelmed during the pandemic.
Such socially isolated individuals during COVID, with a lot of negative thoughts and their mental states, if they can get help through deployment of these social robots in their intimate settings, I think certainly it has a positive impact in the society. So yes, I think we have been fundamentally and forever changed as a world due to COVID.
Awakening Health has announced mass production of a beta version of Grace by August. Officials say the cost of making the robots, now akin to luxury car pricing, will decrease once the company is manufacturing tens or hundreds of thousands of units.
Nearly 6 decades ago, France's prehistoric Lascaux caves were made off limits, but now visitors will again be able to tour the site, only this time in virtual reality. More in this report.
The Lacoste Cave Network, discovered in 1940 by a boy whose dog fell down a hole, contains paintings of animals, human figures, and abstract signs that date back as far as 17,000 years. It was closed to the public in 1963 after the carbon dioxide, heat, and humidity of nearly 2,000 visitors a day began damaging the paintings. But now, thanks to virtual reality, the caves are back in view.
At the start of the project, we acquired a set of 3D data of the Lascaux cave collected during several digitalization campaigns. This data was then integrated into the software that we developed here in this research lab. And using this data and this software, we built the different steps of this visit.
From July 8th, groups of 6 people wearing virtual reality headsets will be able to take a 45-minute tour through the 235-meter-long cave network, dubbed the Sistine Chapel of the prehistoric era.
The interest of this visit is to show things that cannot be easily reproduced in a printout, notably 2 sectors that are still unseen by the public. The well sector that is entirely reproduced, and most importantly, the Felines Gallery and the Felines Cabinet, which even when the actual cave was open to the public, no one could access because you needed to find your way through very narrow passages.
In 1979, several decorated caves of the Vézirive Valley, including the Lacoste Cave, were added to the UNESCO World Heritage Sites list.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. And other business updates. The U.S. stocks have plunged after the earnings of a major automaker and a private sector jobs report came in lower than expected. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell more than 0.5% at open. The S&P 500 also landed in the negative category, opening over 0.25% lower. The tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite fell nearly 0.1% lower at open. Meanwhile, oil prices have fallen amid the spread of the coronavirus, Delta variant, and geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. And for weather updates now, we have Naila Shuja with us.
Thank you. We're going to start off from Abu Dhabi, where the sun is shining bright with temperatures rising to 42 degrees Celsius. In Amsterdam, there are severe thunderstorms with temperatures stagnant at 21 degrees Celsius. In Ankara, the sunny weather is keeping temperatures around 38 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, in Auckland, temperatures are around 14 degrees Celsius and there are clouds here and there. Heading to Bangkok, make sure you do have your umbrella on you as the rain is coming down pretty hard with thunderstorms predicted and temperatures around 33 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, in Beijing, the temperature is around 31 degrees Celsius with lots of sun in the sky. Sunny weather is also expected in Beirut with temperatures at 32 degrees Celsius. While in Berlin, there is a layer of clouds blocking the sun with temperatures around 22 degrees Celsius. And in Cairo, the sun is out and temperatures are around 41 degrees Celsius. Down under in Canberra, the winter temperatures are around 10 degrees Celsius, while in Islamabad, there is some partially sunny weather, but temperatures are going to stay around 32 degrees Celsius. And lastly, in Jakarta, there are thunderstorms predicted with temperatures staying around 32 degrees Celsius. That's all for now. Back to you.
Thank you, Naila, for the weather updates. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.